Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
All right.
With you.
So,
we're totally with you. Okay.
all right, wait. So hold up.
Easy
27.
Johnny. I'm stuck on the whole walking through the
80s, so
hallway.
she was like a Molly Ringwald to me. Like, if you know anything about the John Hughes movies.
I won $100 million.
Oh, God.
I disappeared.
I got it. I know this is why it works. Because there is a way. You think do not. Like,
Easy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Easy Monday Motivation. It is your homeboy E checking in with my wonderful crew that always makes it do what it do. Johnny, my liege, and the homeboy CT. How you guys doing today?
What's going on? So good to be here.
What's up, good people? What's up?
Oh man, you know what, man? We in the full swing of things going into April, and today is a pre-recorded episode, which we're giving it to you on Monday, the 15th. So we're really at that halfway point of April. April's flying by, guys. I mean, I think we've kind of covered a lot of ground really fast. So today, you know, I want to make sure we spend some time to check in on multiple levels, because I think there's some ripple effect things that we haven't like addressed in some of the social dynamics that we clearly see. And today's episode is going to be a little bit about some things that I think are near and dear, and I see in people's physical and social media behaviors. And it's about loneliness. But before we go into this, I want to check in again with you guys. And first, I'm going to come to my guy, CT, ask him, how is this week? How was this week? I know you've been traveling, got a lot going on, man. What's going on, CT? Check in.
What's up, family? Listen, I'm going to say it this way. The things that I got a chance to do, epic, amazing, fantastic. The travel was not okay.
Yeah.
So I was in Tampa, I was in New Orleans, and each one of those flights was delayed by hours at a time.
Yeah.
And even the day that I flew into New Orleans was the day, like that morning, they had tornadoes in Slidell just outside of New Orleans. So it was rainy, it was messy, but the work was epic. Absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Now, I'm a little bit sideways because of the day today. Because today is, and by this time, hopefully everybody will have mailed off their taxes or completed their taxes. And what I just need to say about it is that I don't know that I want to say what I really want to say, because the government might be speaking. But on behalf of my family, I don't like you taxes. And just want to shout out our CPA Sandy, got us together. But boy, oh boy, that's a show. That should be a season 4, 6, 9 show. Like, we should have one of those every part, because we are paying again this year as every year. And then because of all of the travel that I do, some of the new rules, I had to file taxes in like 5, 6 states. So it was an entire thing, y'all. So while I'm in a good mood, all is well, excited for the week, glad to be here with y'all. This tax thing this day is not like I'm mourning today. So my money is feeling lonely. Because I'm having it's not mine. Well, it was never belong to the government. Anyway, so okay, so that's me. I'm good.
Oh man,
y'all remember back in the first season, that one thing she was like, "I'm okay." She was laughing and she was like, "I'm trying
right now around tax season."
Yeah, that's to me my need right there, because it's
that's
tax
right.
season. Oh Jesus. So no, but I'm good.
I'm happy that you're good. Taxes suck.
Texas. That's a great way to sum it up.
Just gotta leave that alone. CT, groundbreaking. All right, Johnny, how have you been? And how was your week? How you been?
I had a great week. You know, I was traveling as well. The weather, I didn't run into the issues at CT. I know you and I spoke briefly, like just checking in, like, is everything good? Did you make it home? What's going on? Because of the weather situation.
Yeah.
I was in Phoenix. Y'all know it was the first time I've been to Phoenix. The weather was perfect, y'all. I mean, literally perfect. The work went fantastic. The weather was great. It was just, it was a great trip overall. I missed my family a lot, but it was a good trip. It was a good trip. Yeah.
Did you have another one of those emergency situations like the last time you went out of town?
I didn't.
That's good.
I did not. I did not. Dad was here, you know, Terry was here on deck. He was ready to handle all situations that came up. I mean, he was ready, y'all. And so when I got back, he was like, this single parent life, I am not about. I can't live this life. So I'm glad you're home and all of that great stuff. So it's good. It was a really great week.
All right, so you're not gonna ask the super question. How's Ace?
Come on.
Are we allowed to cuss on this podcast? Because Ace is a little.
I think we are now.
Ace is a little something else.
A little sweetheart.
Yeah, there you go. He's a little sweetheart.
He's a little something. Yeah.
yes. He's a little baby, y'all. Gosh, he just won't sit down. But other than that, he's good. Getting big. He's a sweetie.
Johnny, who picks up the poop?
Johnny.
Yeah, we both do. Yeah, Terry and I both do.
That is the most thankless job in the world. That is the worst.
We pick up the poop. Let's see, because he's doing great with being housebroken though. He's doing great with that. But yeah, he's just a trip. He's just all over the place, and he just looks at you and just barks and barks and barks and barks and barks and barks, and it's like, shut up! But he's a dog.
You asked for this. You asked for this.
I did, didn't I? I remember the day I told y'all I got this puppy. You said, okay. All right. Yeah. That's on you. It's on me.
Well, shout out to Ace for hanging in there, doing what dogs do, pooping and barking. I mean,
I know he's doing what he's supposed to do. That's what I have to remind myself.
Yeah, like that's exactly all he would do, no matter what. So I'm proud of Ace for meeting his life goals so early in life.
And when I took him to the vet, this older gentleman was like, young lady, would you let that dog be a dog? And I was like, well, there you go, dear. Because I guess I was just doing too much. I was doing way too much.
Johnny, you need to have keyed up on your phone whenever somebody does that. The young lady who is sitting in her car seat and her dad says, you need some help. And she says, you worry about yourself. I need you to have that teed up. Somebody gives you advice every kid. Like, you worry about yourself. You sure? Yeah. Worry about yourself. I got it. Worry about yourself. That's my favorite.
I know. I felt like it was a life lesson though. So I was like, you right, sir. You are absolutely right. I'm gonna take that one.
Yeah. Well, shout out to all of the people parenting puppies. I wanted to pull that out. Parenting puppies and pull it out. Yeah. Okay. All right. So for me, everything's okay. You know, I've been like I said, I've been working a lot. Been really pressed behind the scenes to try to do some new things, expand, learn more. So that all of that's been good. And then, we have just my normal life, and that's been, off the chain. Because that's just what it is. I mean, it's so non-dramatic that I create these fun spaces. Because I like, I literally go out looking for trouble, and I like what I find, the types of trouble that I look for. Like, because I look for specific types of trouble. Like,
what?
Can I get somebody to add stuff to the recipe when I go out to a restaurant? And can I get somebody to change something completely? Right? The types of trouble and chaos that I invoke typically leads to some sort of wonderful inebriating concoction or just glorious food. I mean, I've gone into a place and actually they let me go behind the bar and make my own drinks, and then the bar manager would let me make drinks with him, and we would sit there and just talk, just because of the way that I'll go look for the types of trouble that I like. So those things happen, and it's always fun. So, shout out to being able to create a little chaos in your life that's fun and exciting. So, all right. With that said, the check's in, and I want to jump into today's topic.
Ooh, okay.
Now, today's topic, guys, is islands that we create, isolation islands, talking about loneliness and how in the last 5 years, we have undergone a big transformation as a society, right? Like we have pre-COVID and then we have post-COVID, right? And we are now just a few years post-COVID, right? Now, what happened during COVID, which was heightened, in my opinion, again, I am no professional in these matters, was people were really isolated, and it created a sense of loneliness in people that we hadn't seen in a very long time, at least to the depths that we saw, because not having that job to go to, not having the interaction, of things that like you're used to, you literally seen people socially just be cut completely off. And they had to still operate and try to function in their life, but they had no outlets or no connections to really feed them or to, generate any type of connection or joy in their life. So it became like a whole thing for people. And then some people never got out of it after it happened. Like it didn't. There are some people still living like the lockdown was in a way. There are still some people who still live like the lockdown was today. And I think that it comes to a point where we have to discuss loneliness as it is a part of the mental health scenarios that we have to address within ourselves and in our society and communities. So I want to start off with today asking the question, what is loneliness? And when you guys hear what is loneliness, Johnny, I'm gonna come to you first and say, what is loneliness when you hear that?
Yeah. Oh man, you said a couple good things I want to touch on, but what is loneliness? So I remember listening to an interview with Tracy Ellis Ross. She's single, and they were asking her about this, like being lonely and alone and all these things. And she says, well, wait a minute, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. Because there's a big difference. Yeah. So loneliness, or let's go with alone first. Alone is that physical state of being by yourself. I'm an individual. I love to be alone. That is my one of my happy places, right? I love to be alone. But then you have loneliness, which is more of a state of mind. A feeling that you have, a lack of connection. So that's a big difference. So when I think of loneliness, that is what I think of, those two separate things, because it's one, I am physically alone, and two, I am like almost mentally or spiritually alone, feeling that lack of connection. But it's interesting that you mentioned the mental aspect of it, or the mental health, because I just Googled movies about loneliness, right? Because anytime we talk about a subject, I always like look up TV and movies and just try to like have some context around it. Yeah. And it's so interesting that the movies that came up. So of course I saw movies like Castaway and Martian, because they were literally alone, either in space or, on an island. Cool. But then also I saw things like The Joker or 1 Hour Photo or Taxi Driver. And we know that those movies, if you know anything about those movies, either someone is on the brink of a psychotic break, or it represents some type of mental illness. And I just thought that was so interesting, because it speaks to how we view loneliness as humans, or either how much we need connection and what that represents for us. Or I don't know. Maybe it's just a question of like, is that truly what loneliness that's a result of loneliness? Is just like, there is no other result of that. I don't know. Maybe that's just something that we can all explore together. But I just thought that was very interesting, because you're right. Loneliness does take this or does have this impact on our mental health.
Yeah. Now, I love the fact that you looked up those movies that provide these specific parallels of someone being alone versus someone being in a lonely mental position. Yeah. And like the two movies you call that really stand out is like Castaway, where you have a man who is absolutely alone. There's nobody else there, but he was able to create a connection with a inanimate object and create a whole dynamic in his life based off of that, which never allowed for him to feel lonely.
And isn't that fascinating?
Right.
It's almost like he had to do it. He did it, and it truly helped.
It was the only thing to keep him alive.
Yeah.
That connection for him not to be lonely.
Yeah.
Even though he knew he was alone, was the most vital thing to his survival. Then when we think of the movie The Joker, where he was absolutely around people. He lived in a big city where there was a lot of people, but nobody cared about him. He meant nothing to nobody. No one would even look at him. So he was so disconnected from society that he was just lonely and felt alone.
Felt alone. And it's interesting too, even if you haven't seen the Joaquin Phoenix version of the Joker, we all know what the Joker turns out to be, right?
Yeah.
But it was the character in the movie that he did not harm, because he says, you're the only one that's been nice to me.
Exactly.
Right? It's the only person that he felt a true kind of connection, genuine kindness from, that he didn't even touch, right? Because of that. So that's just interesting.
Exactly. But that's a beautiful parallel, beautiful perspective to drop on that, Johnny. So CT, I got to come to you, my guy. And I want to go ahead and move into the next question. Unless you have something on that one, I want to move into the next one of how do you think it manifests in people? And I know we use these movie parallels, but there's some real life examples that we may be able to talk about where we've seen loneliness manifest in people, where that you need to reach out, that you need to connect with them. So, CT, how would you see, or have you ever seen it manifest in people?
I love this question because there are so many layers and levels to the discussion itself. I do love, Johnny, that you created the distinction between loneliness and being alone. And then there is the state of aloneness that is a bit of a combination between the two, but in a positive spin. It's actually one of the healthier things that you can do for yourself, because it allows you to recharge in the only and best way that you know how, especially for those that would classify themselves as introverts, right? That the way that you reconnect is being able to have space that is when you are physically by yourself alone, but you are not disconnected from the world that you are in, loneliness, right? So you're not physically away from the ability to recognize that there is a world that is around you. There are children are around you. There's a dog that's around you. There's a society. There's a life that is happening, not absent of you, but it is happening because you are choosing to be in it. And I think when we start thinking about this particular topic, and what becomes really important is that whenever you find someone, I was in a conversation last week, and someone was describing a leader. And there was an instance where they were describing where this particular person was just off in the cut. There was a room full of people, and this one person was off in the cut, kind of doing their thing. And they were having a reflection of how that wasn't leadership. And I had an instant moment where I'm like, but maybe not. maybe they're not made to be the person who is in the room, socializing, getting phone numbers, networking in that regard, because I have seen that person in one-on-one instances very engaged and very connected. And so I think sometimes when we think about this particular conversation and topic, we do, I think, need to pause our own bias around how we define what we see, right, versus what really is. Because people would suggest that I'm never alone. Because I'm never alone. Because I'm always in front of groups. And like when I have to go into a particular office, everywhere I go, I'm never alone. But sometimes I want to be left alone, right? But it's like I'm never finding myself where the mental state of where I'm at means I'm not there. And if I ever am, and let me say that I never choose to be, but sometimes I unintentionally end up there based upon what may be happening in life. Maybe I did my taxes and I'm feeling some kind of way. Like there are instances that happen in life that can cause you to disconnect emotionally and mentally, and the ability to get you back to the place has everything to do with where you are connected. Again, back to the full circle of the conversations we have, who is in your circle. So if I saw E walking through the hallway and I said hello to E, because he got his headphones on. Like, remember, he told us before, when he's
Yep.
walking,
Yeah.
like he has his beats on, and you would think he is all by himself. Like he is, but no, he's present. You just have to acknowledge him, and then he will connect with you. And so I think as we journey in this conversation today, I do think it is important for us to make sure that we do create some real distinction, right, between the thing that we might see happening and a reality of what might actually be happening. And to the point about COVID did create isolation, and that isolation forced people inward. And because it forced them inward, we now have to do things to cause people to come out of themselves again, like they were. And that's hard. That's difficult, because not always when you come out of your proverbial shell does that mean it's going to be safe for you to come out, and somebody's not going to do something that's going to hurt you. Because most of the time when people go inward is because there's been a trauma that's happened in their lives that's caused them to go inward. And so I love what this conversation is going to produce, and I'm looking forward to hearing in the chat, what our folks have to say, our easy motivations have to say about it as well. But I try very hard, to be self-aware enough to recognize, wait a minute, I'm in an emotional state that wants me to draw inward. And because of that, I need to purposefully and intentionally not be alone, because then all I'm feeding and fueling is what's happening in here. When in truth, the circle that I have is the one that helps validate that there is actually something better going on than what I'm telling myself.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I definitely love that. And what I'll pull out of that, which I know lays across the question of how does it manifest, of course, is that you'll see people go inward, right? Like you'll see them shut down in certain ways, because it's not to disconnect from, to be lonely as much as it is to have a aloneness in themselves to deal with themselves, as well as you'll see it manifest in them reaching out to people in certain ways, because that may be their way of displaying their loneliness. Like, I'm screaming for help because I am lonely, versus somebody shutting down and not talking to anybody and being a recluse being the only way to see being loneliness. Okay, so I mean, I'm digging it, and we got a little exercise we're gonna do in a minute that's gonna kind of play with that. But I do want to come to one additional question to both of you, and just and just lay it out there. Have you ever felt lonely?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I have.
Yeah.
And I felt lonely. Well, one, before we get into that, I just want to touch a little bit on what CT was saying about like when you're in a certain emotional state and it causes you to kind of go inward. That's interesting, because as I've just stated, I'm a person who enjoys her aloneness. Right. I y'all know that's my jam. I've talked about that many times on here, me being a flower child and being alone. But there are times when it's not as healthy, when I don't come out creative and with a new idea and something, whatever. It's times where I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's time for me to connect with other people, because I'm getting too inside my head. And I think that was a little bit after COVID too. That did affect me a little bit. It was hard. I had to force myself, because I am such an introvert, had to force myself again to be involved, to talk to people face to face, to be around people like Johnny. It's a whole world happening out here. So you can't get too comfortable inside your own, aloneness. But going back to being lonely, I think it was a time of my life that I was kind of I guess I wanted a certain kind of companionship that I didn't have. But now that I look back on, now that I'm in the space that I'm in now, I think it had a little bit more to do with my own self-awareness and insecurities, I would say. Like, I was really trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do career-wise, like kind of who I wanted to be. And this is early adulthood, when you're probably supposed to kind of be figuring all those things out, right? And now that I look back on it, I didn't recognize that loneliness. I probably felt more alone because I was lacking in here. And it was less about the external companionship that I thought I was looking for, and more about
Yeah.
what I needed inside. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. CT, you felt lonely before?
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody has. And sometimes, depending on where you are in the particular transition of your life, you might need to be, because
Mhm.
when you're around a lot of people, it can get real noisy. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you're around a lot of people, they have a lot of opinions and perspectives, and if you have too many voices in your head,
Yes.
sometimes you need to go be lonely. Sometimes you need to go be alone, be lonely in your thoughts, and
Yes.
but you can't stay there,
Yeah.
right? You can't stay in that place, because now it becomes an echo chamber. And if you don't have the right tapes flowing, if you don't have the right
Yeah.
intake in there, now you've created a story that it could potentially be harmful or detrimental, and that it can impact what you need to do next, or where you need to go next, or who you need to invite into your circle next. I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, someone came to me, and they were asking a question about moving teams, and they gave me they were like, and the feedback that I got from the person I'm going to be working with is bad. I was like, really? From who? Have you had a specific experience with that person? They were like, no. I was like, well, maybe for that other person, they were supposed to be just that. And maybe that's exactly what you need. Maybe whatever they were to them is what you need.
Mhm.
But if you
Mhm.
have the wrong headset, and now you are in your lonely place playing that headset, now you're asking the wrong kinds of questions. It doesn't mean that you don't ask the good questions, you don't stay informed, but sometimes the intake that we get might just be information for information's sake, not information that we have to put in our file and file it away and make sure we're using it as informed ways that we make decisions. Sometimes it's just information, and it's all. So I think I have been, and I do intentionally go to these places, because again, I have the benefit of being in an exposed uh
Yeah.
role and capacity, and so there's a lot of intake that I get all the time. And while I love being able to do that, sometimes I do have to pull away and to ensure that I can know what my own voice sounds like, because there's so many voices around me. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and thank you both for sharing, sharing that. Now,
How about
you
you?
know,
What
Yeah,
about
I
oh
was
you?
just
no,
gonna say that.
no,
What about you?
no, I got fish. I got lemon tree. I can't feel lonely. I mean, hey guys. Hey. They got
Right.
17 guys over there to talk to. I mean,
Right.
I've named them all now, but I can't tell which one is which sometimes, so I mix them up. But
I promise you, my instinct, right when we were closing at our first, I was going to ask about the fish and the lemon tree. And my
Yep. Me
instinct
too.
said, ask about it. Even in the context of the conversation, I was like, he only has those so that he don't feel like he's alone. Like, that's what I felt like in my own head. And now he just said it out loud.
yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, you can't be lonely if there's life around you, things that you can
Mm,
connect with. And I mean, on top of that, I mean, I do have family and friends, and I do have my hobbies and things that keep me occupied. Now, am I alone? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's nobody here right now if we discount the fish
yeah.
in the lemon tree. And in any bacteria that are growing somewhere that I'm unaware of. I mean, you got to count them; they exist, right? So, I mean, I'm really stretching it here for life, but I'm just playing. But no, I mean, I've of course experienced being lonely. I definitely will say that the toughest time for me, the loneliest time that I've ever had in my life was when my son moved away, because
Yeah.
that right there was like, what?
Yeah.
This is somebody you would see all the time and I would be with all the time. And then my house is empty. And, the empty nester feeling was just like,
Yeah.
oh, that did,
Yeah.
I will just be honest. Like, people go through this because that is a feeling that is loneliness.
Yeah.
An empty house where you had life is a feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yes, I've experienced it. Did I learn from it? Did I learn how to build connections outside so that I didn't feel that way? Yes. So yeah, of course I felt lonely. Definitely. So with that, I want to ask, like, we're gonna look at some images today. We're gonna pull up this photo, and I'm gonna ask you guys, like, when you look at this, like, what do you see in the context of loneliness or being alone? Like, Johnny, I'll come to you first, and say, when you see this image, what do you see?
I'm only smiling because, like, I see me when I look at this. Like,
Okay,
this
that's good.
is me out on a bike ride, moving the bike over and just going sit on a bench and be present. I love what CT mentioned about sometimes it's good to be of course alone, but also maybe even experience that little loneliness, because if you try to fill that gap or hole with something else, it gets a little too noisy, gets a little too clouded. But I've come to learn to appreciate that time, because that's when your thoughts are clear. I can hear God really clearly. I can, clear out all of the noise and just be present in the moment. And so that's what I see when I look at this image, being present in the moment.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. CT, what do you see?
Man, it's what hit my head is the contrast of peace and fire. Like, I know that there is a figure sitting on a bench, but what I was drawn to was what was the figure is experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it was less about what I see and more about, like, Johnny was like, that's me. But I was like, I'm the person on the bench, and I'm like, what are they looking at?
Mm-hmm.
And what they're looking at is probably an incredibly peaceful, quiet, serene moment, or it's fire and chaos in their head because something crazy is going on and they had to get away from everybody and they need to sit down on a bench. And if you could see the person, they may be crying, they could be smiling, but they're sitting there in a space where the reflection of the moment is all about them and whatever is happening, whatever is going on. But that sunshine in the background just suggests light to me, and whatever is shining on and whatever they're looking at in this moment is like, there's some peace to it, but there's also, you know what, let me be responsible to the show. There's some peace to it, and there's also some chaos that is happening around this image in terms of that's what first comes to my mind when I see it.
Okay. And you know what? The funny thing is, I kind of blend both of what you see into what I see. Like, I see in my opinion, I see decay. I see decay of something. Like, I see the trees. There's no life on the trees. There's no leaves. The sun is setting. So, like, what is the sun setting on? And this person is just sitting as the world or her world is setting on her without any ability to foster any new life or any new connections. And that is why you would sit alone in accepting the decay around you, because there's nothing you can do. So, like, I had multi-tiered things as I looked at to the background of, like, to your point, CT, like the sun sitting there the way it is in the middle is this really big red hot thing, and everything around it looks like red and cloud with some cloudiness to it. But then also see these trees that typically would represent some sort of life, but it represents none. There's no life on those trees, and she sits in between that. It almost looks cryptic, but I think that some people see things that way. There are those people who see are more pessimistic than than optimistic. So, and I may be one of them. I don't know. But yeah. Also, you know what I'm saying? I do see that she got her haircut looking all GI. Hey, how you doing, Shadow Lady? I see you. Okay. So,
Shadow Lady.
Right. So he did, like, okay, like levels, layers. What keeps bugging me is what's underneath.
Yeah.
Those roots. Like, is that a shadow of the branches? Is it roots in the ground? I could not make out. What do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, they could be the shadows of the branches, but to your point, they could be roots representing new growth or the death of the tree. So, I mean, I'm with you. Like, it could be interpreted anyway. Yeah, it could be.
Right?
Could be. It could. Yeah, you're right. Because, like, you could almost pull, like, maybe the The roots are growing from her to these trees. So yeah, you could say that too. So yeah,
because that's her foundation. Oh, we could go.
Yeah.
We could turn this into like one of those art exhibits, and someone standing there saying, "I see the texture of the painting." And
hold on, wait. Before we do that, I can't do that without scotch. Okay, I can't.
Yeah,
Okay,
real,
I'm sorry. I can't do that without scotch. I wouldn't be able to talk about anything like that. So right, all right, but I agree though. I do agree. All right, Cam, do me a favor. Let's pull up the next image so we can do that one as well. All right, so I'm gonna come to you this time, CT, first. So when you see this image, what do you see?
Wow. I'm pausing because I'm trying not to be like way deep here, but like literally, it's the thing that I love most, and yet it is the thing that feels most authentic. And what I mean by that is, I see water. I see a sunset on the water, and I see someone sitting in a place where there is what it should be is sand, but it looks like scorched earth.
Yes.
And yet there's growth from that scorched earth. And different than the last picture image, there is something that's being produced out of that tree, but literally the image who is sitting in this picture very much is where I find my greatest inspiration, where I get the ability to just pause and there's nothing else around, and yet much of what I end up having to do looks like what should be the sand, but it's death next to something that is life. Water is life, and yet whatever is keeping that tree alive is coming from a place that where the water is. So there's this one almost feels like an emotional picture, more than the last one did for me. So
yeah. Okay. All right, Johnny, what do you see?
I agree with that statement. That's exactly what I was thinking, because the last picture to me almost looks like a fall day in Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I was like, that's me. That's every day, right?
Yeah.
But this one looks more emotional. Like, to me, this represents loneliness. That difference between being alone and being lonely, being lonely, because of it's like surrounded by nothing, but yet you have, like CT was saying, the tree, the water, the sun almost represents hope a little bit. Like, that's that state of being lonely does not last forever. There's still something brewing. There's still something to happen. There's still life to be had. So that's what I think when I look at this one. But it's definitely more emotional than the last one for me.
Yeah. And when I was looking at the photos that I wanted to be able to like pull this conversation with, and I had a bunch that I went through, like you're spot on, Johnny. Like the one with the lady on the park bench seems more like alone, right? Where this one like just exudes loneliness because you have this on the horizon, which looks like these really dark clouds, right? That are like covering the light, but that light shines beautifully off of this water that CT2 call out, like that must be sustaining this tree, because there's no way this tree is living, on this barren ground. Because when you look at the rocks in the ground, no tree should be able to grow from that, but yet there is life growing from it. And that man being able to sit in the shade of the tree that is being created by the light from the sun that only is reaching him because of the water that he is sitting it by, with the clouds encroaching. It is a very emotional piece to me too, and I definitely think that it does show how lonely somebody can be. That you can be somebody on an island by yourself, dealing with all of life by itself, the ebbs and flows of life, the good and the bad, the dark and the light, by yourself in what you could feel like is a barren land. So yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All around the board, you guys always deliver. I have never ever been disappointed in these types of conversations with you guys. So I do now want to ask, do you guys have any additional questions on this topic as we talk about loneliness? Because now I want to pivot to the question of how do we cure or how do we work on our loneliness and being alone in those avenues, those veins. And I did some research and I was looking around and I'm like, yes, everything I looked at was like family, friends, people, talk to people, do this. Like, all right, yeah, you telling me to do stuff that if I'm an introvert, I'm not easy to do that. You asking me to go and change my whole behavior for something that you want. And that's not something I really want. I just don't want to be alone. So, I don't want to be lonely. But I don't want to have to go out and go talk to everybody. I don't, all of these things. I have to navigate this world where being disconnected and being socially awkward now is a status that some people are proud about. Like they literally be like, I'm an otaku. I don't go outside. I'm a shut in. Like there's these words now that just are associated to this whole new social dynamics where people are just making being lonely and alone the norm, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to come to you guys and I want to ask the question that's pretty straightforward. What do you think that connections can be a cure to loneliness? And I'll start with you this time, Johnny.
Okay. That's such a great question, E, because as you were saying that, you said, okay, I saw the same thing. Get connected to people, your family, your friends. And I'll kind of add on to what you were saying about being introverted. Not only being introverted, but what about if you have hit that state of loneliness, right? Where you're like, yeah, I have people in my life, but that doesn't matter. I still feel lonely. So do I think connections is the cure? Perhaps one of it, part of it, right? Mm-hmm. But also, kind of like when I was talking about when feeling lonely, well, what's on the inside? Like what is causing that gap? What's causing you to feel that loneliness? Is it, like CT said, a space, maybe it's a season in your life where you're feeling that loneliness and you probably need to, right? Did you lose someone? Are you feeling insecure about something? Are you searching for something internally? Has your relationship with God just been a challenge for you, or your higher being, whatever you believe in, right? I don't know. So yes, and I love the way you kind of said it. You were like, yeah, okay, we know that. We get that part of it, but what more is there? So yes, I do believe being connected to other people, but also I think we have to look inward. I feel like I say that like every week or something, right? But it's something to that. Looking inward, like are you missing something? Is something happening? Something going on? I think that's even the first step before we start looking outward.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, CT, what about you?
Yeah, like I am a believer in the principles and concepts connected to connection. And it doesn't always have to be people that we are connected to, but just connection in general. So here are a couple things that we want to think about, maybe not necessarily as a cure, but a way to consider how in stages and places where we are feeling lonely or even alone, both can apply here. Some things that help you stay connected, even in the midst of either one. I'll give you 8. You ready? Okay. So number 1, embrace solitude. It is okay to be by yourself sometimes. As we said before, sometimes it's actually really good if you're around people all the time. Number 2, avoid comparison. Don't compare yourself with anybody else because somebody else is not you. Number 3, limit your social media. Sometimes the socials can mess you all the way up because you're trying to think that you are number 2, comparing yourself to the people who are out there. Number 3, I do think it is important that there's something unique and authentic about being natural with somebody. Like there's another human next to another human who is having a human experience. I do think there's something that's important to that in the spirit of building connection. Leaving yourself open, number 5, to learn from each other to read about new things and to leave yourself open to new perspectives. Number 6, practice some self-compassion, right? Really give yourself permission to be compassionate with yourself, because when life is lifing, couple weeks ago, that's one of my favorite titles, y'all. When life is
Yeah.
life, like if you're not giving your compassionate with yourself, you could really be too hard on yourself, which then makes it very difficult for you to do the next one, and that is create some new outlets, right? Give yourself permission to go to some place you've never been before, or do some things that help you back to that picture. Go to a beach, sit quietly, read a book, like do something that is you, that helps to ground you and bring you back to the center. And then last but certainly not least, on this particular topic about being connected and how you help create connection, make sure you've got a support infrastructure and get help when you need to. So that was one of the things I did at Johnny this time, y'all. I didn't just want to just, just off the rip, give CT. I wanted to actually give something rich and real and with some context. And so hopefully those are some things you guys can think about in the spirit of connection.
I absolutely love that, because that answers that leads me into like the other part of that, like how we build connections is very important. And CT, that list of 8 is great. Guys, we'll run that back. You know what I'm saying? We will. But I also think it's important that we know why it matters that we share our experiences with each other, because I do think that being alone and being in feeling lonely requires us to let people know that. In some instances, it requires us to share that we feel that way. Because if I see, like, I'll be honest, I'm a lone wolf. I know my homeboy Cam is more of a lone wolf too. Like, I will go do everything by myself. I will do, and hashtag Johnny says it, all the things by myself. Cam, pull it up. Hashtag all the things. I will do all the things by myself. I will go out to eat by myself. I'll go drinking by myself. I will go out of town by myself. I will do all the things by myself. And somebody, and this has happened in conversation, somebody has said, like, man, wouldn't that get lonely? And I was like, it would, if I had nobody to share my experiences with, that I'm going and having these experiences. Because I have people that I can connect with and tell that I've done the things that I'm doing, then it doesn't really bother me that I do it by myself, because then I can tell them to go do the same things that I do by myself if they want to, with their family and friends and other people, because I have my own lived experience that I'm able to share with those people who don't have the freedoms that I have, which other people could perceive as me being lonely. Well, no, I'm not lonely. I'm just alone. So I can go do all the things by myself, while you may not have that ability. So me being able to share my perspective and create and explain to people how my connections are the same as theirs and how my experiences are the same as theirs, I think creates the bridges that we have for people to walk away from being lonely and just be okay with being alone.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say really quickly, E2, and also, like we've stated already, that loneliness is a state of mind. So it's not about you going out and doing all the things by yourself, because actually sometimes it's more fun, because you don't have to worry about people and all their shenanigans, and they ready to go and they don't like the food, and you like, can you just shut up and just be present? Right. So sometimes it's more fun to do those things. I love going to the movies by myself. It's one of my favorite things. So again, it's that state of mind though. And you're the type of person too. You don't meet a stranger. Like, you will talk to anybody anytime. So you going somewhere by yourself is probably best anyway, because the person with you is like, can you please stop talking to everybody you see?
Johnny. Come on, Johnny, say that all of that. That's right.
Can you just be here and you talking and you making drinks behind the bar, you talking about new recipes, and the person is like, hey, can you stop, please? But seriously though, right? It's a state of mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
there's something freeing about that. One of the things I'm doing right now is I'm asking people to consider the idea that every person that they meet and that they know is a stranger. And it's if you do that, what should be the outcome? hopefully you're not afraid of strangers. Like our daughter, when she was a baby girl, she never could meet a stranger. You meet people, never meet a stranger. You were like, you had to pull her away. It's like, no, that's a stranger, baby. We don't talk to strangers. But some of what we grew up in, because we don't we live in an evil world. You have to protect yourself from the stranger. And yet, when you give yourself permission to not let anybody be a stranger, you give yourself open to learn new things every single time that you're out, because every person you meet is unique and original and has something you can learn. And so, Johnny, when you were talking about that, I was like, Eric never meets a stranger. Like, he will talk to any and everybody on the street. He'll go up in the restaurants. He told us before, he's like, he will make his own drink in a place that's not his restaurant. I'll be like, excuse me, I would like to recommend a new drink, right? There's like, who does that, right? And so, right, that's why you can't judge a proverbial book by its cover and be like, he's by himself. No, he's not. He's just
It's all good.
he's just, in the physical sense, the only person you see right now. Wait 5 minutes and you will see like whole restaurants surrounding them. Like, it's just the way that when E gives himself permission to just be himself, like it's all good, and we all benefit from it. So
yeah. No, I love that, and I think it's very important that we know ourselves, like Johnny, like you said, like the connections first is connecting with you. Yeah. Like, I do me, so when I go out, like what you see is who I am, and I'm gonna do all of the things that I would do.
That's right.
I'm gonna live in my chaos. I'm gonna turn up. I'm gonna do all. I want to live a fulfilling life, that the day that when the lights turn down for me, like everybody would be able to say like, yo, but he was him the whole time, like he lived too, like he was, and he gave and he did everything that he wanted to do, like, so yeah, and that's important to me, because I as the example, like I know some people look at, I've had people literally reach out to me like, man, you inspire me. Like, I see you, all the stuff you do. And like, they sit quietly and watch because they live vicariously through me, because they know my journey and all of that. And I'm like, yo, I want to be able to pass off that joy and be that great example for some people who may need to see that you're going to struggle in while you juggle, right? Because that's just what it is. So, yeah. All right. So with all that said, I mean, CT, I gotta check in and be like, I know grandma ain't never been lonely because she's loved by everybody, but what would grandma say? What would grandma do about loneliness? What would grandma come to tell us?
I appreciate you, E. And again, season 2, grandma's gonna say to us, come here, baby. And grandma was like, this was one of those deep thinking, processing questions, and I didn't want to be irresponsible or too funny, but I did feel like there was a depth that grandma needed to share in this week's episode. And Johnny, I honor so deeply that there is this idea that there is a distinction between being lonely and being alone. And grandma said she wanted to focus on what it means to be alone so that you don't feel lonely. How to be alone so you don't feel lonely. So she did this really weird thing. She was just like, she said, baby, I want you to think about alone as 2 words. She said, alone. I was like, alone. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, so when in the spirit of feeling lonely, you are going to take out a loan. And the A you're going to take out in this loan that you're borrowing from is the acceptance that you are okay. The ability to know, I was inspired by the alliteration that we created a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to stay with some wordplay here. She would say you have to accept the authentic author that you are in this amazing life that you have created. You have to accept you first. And when you can accept you, then you can borrow against you the loan. She said, so once you get the A right, then you can borrow against this loan. And I said, well, what is someone borrowing against? Then somebody can come into your life. That's the L. Someone can come into your life, and even if your life is lifing, you can remember that last week we talked about the love and the laugh and to live in a way that allows other people to be inspired by your presence so that you never are alone. But in the spirit of you taking out that loan and borrowing against that loan because you accept who you are, there's a O. And she said, man, the thing that has to be really critically important for people to remember is that they are original. There was this uh there was this group when I was growing up, and grandma said, well, even though you are original, she said you are ordinary. And she was like, no, 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 baby, you're not ordinary, you're extraordinary. And she said, the ordinary, as the song would say, just won't do. The song goes on to say, I need a love that's pure and true. I can only find it in you, Jesus. The ordinary just won't do. I got to have a touch from you. I can only find it in you, Jesus. And she said, you can find an ordinary love if you are original, but you can find that extraordinary love when you give yourself permission to accept who you are in the life that you have. And oh, by the way, she said, have you ever seen anything extraordinary? I was like, she said, have you ever seen a plane fly? That's extraordinary. Ever seen a boat float on water? That's extraordinary. She said, have you ever seen E, Scotch with E, just be who he be? He's extraordinary. Have you ever seen everyday conversations Johnny do what she do the way that she does it? She's not ordinary. She's extraordinary. And when that extraordinary shows up in life, there is the end. Then you can tell a better story because your narrative is right. And when your narrative is right, when you're sitting out on that beach listening, the story that you're telling yourself is much better. And the things that you're thinking about are helping you create more extraordinary moments for the people who are in your life. But then it crossed my heart that since the E's of the last couple of weeks have been extraordinary, I could not make this E less than extraordinary than the ones that have been. I'm going to have to read this one because this one messed me up a little bit. The E in this loan that I'm borrowing from is the word enigma, mysterious, puzzling, difficult to understand. If you don't have the right story going on, recognize that you are extraordinary and being able to give life because you accept yourself. You might come across as an enigma to people. And then they might say, well, you look like you're alone. Or you might look like that you're lonely. And the cure, grandma would say, to being an enigma is to make sure that you are clear, transparent, obvious, and to put yourself in the best position so that when somebody thinks you are an enigma, you create clarity for them so that they know the mystery of me has nothing to do with you. It's my ability to recognize I know who I am. And when I know who I am, my story is right. When my story is right, I'm extraordinary. When I'm extraordinary, when life is lifing, it's okay because I'm still love, laughing, and learning together because I accept the authentic author that I am in this amazing life that I have. Thank you, Grandma.
Oh, that's what's up.
I had to slow walk this one, E. That one I had to slow
yeah.
one today. I couldn't rush this.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I rock with it. Okay, Grandma. And just so you know, Grandma, I'm going to need a loan. Okay. Not there. Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, let's CT, you got something, but you know, also, Johnny, what you got?
E. Oh my goodness. You know, I was going to go a different way, but I think like this topic spoke to me today. So I'm just going to share what stuck out to me as opposed to trying to, you know, whatever, like I normally do. This was stuck out. It's two words in particular that really stuck out to me during our conversation today. And the first one is freedom. CT mentioned that there is a freedom in being alone, especially as we were talking about E and it, like literal freedom, like you can do what you want to do, and also that state of mind. So as we talk about like the difference between loneliness and alone, I guess just reminding ourselves that it is okay to be alone, and you can find that freedom in it. I know I have, right? And I continue to do so. When I was younger, I didn't understand what that really meant. Like being alone, thinking you have to be around people, or just understanding what that aloneness really meant. And so you can find that freedom that you're looking for if you take some time to be alone, because maybe all of the answers to all of the questions out there is just taking time in that space by yourself, as opposed to looking for it externally, right? So there's freedom in that. And then also horizon. So if, as we were looking at our pictures, if you are that person that is experiencing loneliness, maybe the cure, as that's just the word that we were using in our conversation today, is right over the horizon, right?
Mm.
And maybe it's okay to experience that time alone, because maybe you're finding all those answers, but what you're looking for could be right around the corner. And I don't want people to get lost in that idea of loneliness, or that feeling of loneliness, because at the top of our conversation I gave examples of some movies, right, of what it means to be lonely. And it really had me thinking, like, man, is that the only representation of loneliness? Is that what we think? Or is it just because, like, connection is so important to us that when we are experiencing loneliness, we kind of take a dark turn or a dark twist in our life, right? And so just reminding us that that answer, that sun shining, it could be just right over the horizon, and just give it some time. Talk to someone if you need to talk to someone, maybe family or friends or a professional, or whatever you have to do, right? Because the answer you need just could be right around the corner. And don't get lost in that state of being lonely.
Yes,
Very true.
thank you, Johnny, and your gym was very polished. We appreciate it, because I know you wasn't ready, because I set you up with the loan thing. I mean, the Johnny what you got is always working. I'm just always gonna find a way to throw it in there and get that laugh, because she's not gonna know.
I don't know why it even does that, but I don't know. It just makes me laugh every single time.
I mean,
Smile on my face.
hey, listen, on everything, CT, I think I got like 20 something episodes of getting her with it. So at some point, we're going to have a Johnny What You Got.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, you're going to have like a compilation.
It's a part of the show. It is just a part of the show.
Johnny What You Got.
Oh gosh, what a dork. I'm so embarrassed.
It's amazing. I definitely appreciate it. So I will, so your message from your AOC today. I'm gonna get real with people right now on some things, because I feel like I'm the one that needs to say it, because nobody else will just say it. You all right? You all right?
Yeah.
You know, you're all right. I know you like sitting by yourself. I know you like doing your own thing. I know, like, there's this whole thing of just you doing you, and people being in your space can bother you. You know, I know, like, how other people can impact your flow, your vibes, everything. I know. And it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's okay that you feel the way you feel. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to know that you're lonely. It's okay. You will be all right. Yeah. Because there are people who want to know that you're lonely, and they want to know that you're alone, and they want to know what's going on with you. You may not know that they want to, but they do.
Yeah.
There's people who really care. If you absolutely don't think so, keep trying to talk to people and find out. And you'll see that someone does. Sitting alone does not get you a lot, because the saying is very true: closed mouth don't get fed. If I don't know you're hungry, I can't feed you. So it's all right, guys. It's all right to be hurt. It's all right to be in pain. It's all right to grieve. It's all right to mourn. It's all right to feel. But what is not all right is to stay in certain places. So I'm telling you, for everything that is all right, you good. We were giving you your pass. But for those things that we know and you know do not foster any of the light that we've been talking about, any of the connections that we've been talking about, any of the work that you know you need to do on yourself so that you can make it to that next level within your life, so that you can be who you choose to want to be, so you can obtain the things that you're working towards. If you want those things, then you know that staying in self-doubt and in bad spaces and negative spaces is not all right.
Mm-mm.
And the last thing I'm gonna say on it is go out and go be around good people, have good experiences that will get you some good outcomes. Okay, good people, good experiences, good outcomes. I'm telling you. Until I started working, hey, listen, I'm about to throw them under the bus. I've worked on multiple podcasts. Until I got with good people on podcasts, like I didn't get the good results. Like that's really what it is. Like you do need to surround yourself with good people and like-minded people. Look, man, I spent time gaming with people, barely talking, but we had that experience together and it allowed for me to connect. I didn't feel alone. They could be in a whole nother country, but you see what I'm saying? Like we gotta do the work. So all right. So that I'm getting off my soapbox. Getting off my soapbox, but just letting y'all know,
you dropped it on us today, CT.
Yeah, I mean, I had to talk to the people. I had to come straight to the people. Like, because I know.
I'm gonna take it. I'm taking it.
Yeah. All right. So we're going into the round robin of our final thoughts. My guy CT, you listen, man. You know I absolutely love you, man. You keep me grounded, and your perspectives make me always pull back and be like, I always want to be so on everything. And CT be like, but what about this? And I'm like, all right, whatever, Uncle Snoop. You always introducing it like slow down, cuz, like slow down, nephew. You got to think about this. And I'm like, whatever. All right, Uncle Snoop, you know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm coming to you for your final thoughts.
Speaking of Uncle Snoop, never mind. So
420.
Oh man, this I really am proud of how we are allowing this pod to touch what could be like deep sensitive topics and doing it in a thoughtful way that we can provide our own perspective, our own levels. And this one in particular, I do think in coming out of a season, to your point at the top of the pod, where our world was forced into a singular experience of, let's just say one word called isolation, which for some people created an easier pathway to disconnect in some way, shape, or form. And my final thought is hopefully through this pod, you heard something in some way say, I was like, get over yourself. That was like, Eric was like, get over yourself and move on. He didn't say that, but that, like, when I heard, I was like, man, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for the idea. That's like some things we're in it because we're choosing to be in it, but we don't need to be. So make a different choice. And so if this conversation, because it's been helpful for me to remember, sometimes I just want to be by myself and it's okay. And sometimes I don't need to be by myself. And that's okay too. But when I know I'm not supposed to, then it's my job, it's my responsibility to myself to go find a connection in the circle that I have, that I trust, so that I don't fall into the trap of being lonely intentionally. And then putting myself in a bad place. And so Johnny, I appreciate y'all so much, because these are those moments where you're like, I'm super reflective today. Like I'm really reflective today about this conversation and listening to you all's perspective and just being mindful even of my own self, that I've got to make sure that even though I might have some advice, some counsel, some perspective, I got to make sure I'm taking it myself. So
yeah, that's beautiful. As always, man. Tell the queen, man, I said what's up. No conversational topics today that required me to be corrected. I feel like I did good today. I feel like I was
really good.
I behaved.
You acted right.
I did, but just know my final thoughts I won't. All right, so Johnny, my liege. Johnny, my liege, my final words.
It's just funny that CT said that this is causing him to be reflective because, yeah, I just felt like this was about me. A lot of times during our episodes, it's like, yes, what can we say to the motivationers? I was like, what can we say to Johnny today? How is this speaking to me? Maybe it's just something that I needed. Maybe because, again, I do enjoy being alone, but I know that there is a fine line because I get into my head and I'm thinking like, oh, wait a minute. I have to remind myself, even though I'm in a house full of people and a dog, I still have to remind myself like there's a big world out there, girl. Get out of your head and go experience what life has to offer. And so I don't know. My final thoughts was like this was just a good episode. Maybe my soul needed this. And for like you said, the folks who enjoy being alone, that's all right. It's all good. Just don't get into that loneliness space and stay there. There's people around you that really care. I was having a conversation with a therapist and they were like, the people around you, they can handle it. They can handle it. You maybe think that they can't because you've been the strong one or you've been the one to take it all on. And you're like, no, I can't share those things and thinking that people can handle it, but they can handle it.
Yeah.
Just allow them to.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're having those feelings, don't be afraid to share those with people that you're close with because they can handle it. It's all good. Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
Good. They can handle it.
They can handle it.
Me and my
I'm glad.
It's a hashtag moment. They can handle it.
Yeah, they can handle it. I like that hashtag that because that takes me to my final thoughts because as soon as this episode was like I was thinking about it, right, and like in my mind all I could hear was the remix to a certain song with my homeboy KC singing it from KC and JoJo. If you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight, girl. Okay, I'm gonna testify. Okay, I'm gonna testify. Okay, you think you're lonely? Okay, no. Well.
I can't.
I'm gonna tell you about this situation I had, and they always talking about what they ain't got and what somebody else does got, and I can't be everywhere in all the places at all the times. So again, if you think you are lonely now, just wait until tonight. Girl. Okay, I can't help myself. Now I do have a whole version of it where I sing it. I got a wig. It's like I do the whole thing, and I'll be stepping out like, and I'm hand on mine. I do the whole thing. It'd be off the chain. It's like sexual chocolate. Like CT, we should do that video.
I don't want to see it.
We gotta watch it. All right. But seriously,
CT, don't laugh at him.
He can hear it in his head. He knows the song.
That's what it is.
I do.
I'm all right, so fully present. So really my final thoughts are just the ones that I have for everybody. It's not okay to be lonely. You don't have to be, and we care. People do care. I've had lonely moments. I've had all of these wonderful moments too. And when I'm down and I am alone, I know that I could reach out to certain people and they will literally build me back up in a heartbeat. Yeah. Like I know there's been times, y'all, that we come to this show and we need each other. We just need each other in those first moments of just logging on to a session and talking with each other. It's so beautiful. It does so much for everybody on the pod that it just proves to me that even if I ever felt lonely or alone, I never would be because I have my EMM family. So. Okay. All right. With that said, you can find us on all of the platforms, all of the things. All right. Now, if you all of the things is really a hashtag. I can't stop saying it.
Stop it.
So if you are watching us or listening to us on on Apple iTunes or Spotify, please make sure that you like and get those reviews up, because we're trying to make sure we get to 5 stars on the platforms that we're on. If you're listening on YouTube, please go ahead and give some comments, go ahead and give some likes. We want to make sure that our platform continues to grow, and we can't grow without you. The seeds that we're planting in you and with you, with these messages, we want to blossom them so that we can change the world from the inside out. And you are a part of that. You're an easy motivationer. And without the EMM team, I mean, we can't make the dream come true. So I say all that to say, continue to subscribe, like, turn on those notification bells, stream, listen, play it back. Tell us what we did right. Tell us what we did wrong. Show up in those comments. Show up to the live events. And I guess the last thing I can tell you guys is just to chill until the next episode. Peace. Have a good one, guys.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.